Hello everybody, Stephen P. New here, wrestling's greatest trial lawyer. And I'm coming to you this evening on the House of Kayfabe to talk about the much talked about, but not yet seen, MLW lawsuit against World Wrestling Entertainment. Someone messaged me today and said, you were custom built to give commentary about this lawsuit. And I'd like to begin by saying that a complaint, which is the pleading, the legal document that begins a lawsuit, is just that. It's just allegations. So I want to go over some of what those allegations are, break those down for what they mean in layman's terms, and get into the meat of these allegations, what they mean for MLW, and the ramifications on the sport of professional wrestling. I hope to do more of these columns for House of Kayfabe, and if you like what you're viewing, and there won't be any impersonations this evening of Vince McMahon, Court Bauer, or anyone else related to this litigation, as with my last video. But if you like what you're watching, if you like what we do on House of Kayfabe, find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and give us a subscribe, and we will appreciate you. I think that you'll love what we do on the House of Kayfabe. And we got a lot of exciting stuff coming up in 2022 that Brian Resner and I and our team are really excited about. So let's start. This lawsuit was filed in United States District Court, Northern District of California. The plaintiff's lawyers are Jason Takanouchi, Mark Kazowitz, and Christine Montenegro, and they are with the firm of Kazowitz, Benson, and Torres, with offices in San Francisco, California, and New York, New York. And so let's go over this, the complaint, and I'll show you guys this, or maybe I won't. MLW Media, LLC versus World Wrestling Entertainment. And the case is case 4:22-CV-00179 KAW. That's how you can find it through the Pacer system, and that's how I looked it up. It's a complaint for intentional interference with contractual relations. Count 2, intentional interference with prospective economic relations. Count 3, violation of Section 2 of the Sherman Antitrust Act. And 4, Business and Professional Code, Section 17,200 et sec. Jury trial demanded. So there is a preliminary statement that the action arises out of the egregious efforts of professional wrestling company WWE to destroy its competitor, Major League Wrestling's business, and maintain its dominance of the U.S. broadcasting market for professional wrestling by unlawfully interfering with MLW's access to media markets and wrestling talent. So let's break this down, what all of this means. That's a preliminary statement. And I want to go to what is actually alleged in the background. A professional wrestling industry. I find it interesting that at paragraph 17 of this complaint, All Elite Wrestling as a non-party and non-party Impact Wrestling are both mentioned, along with MLW, as being competitors in the United States professional wrestling market. The relevant product market for purposes is the national market for sale of broadcasting rights for professional wrestling programs to networks, cable, and streaming services. They define the relevant market. And the lawsuit goes on to describe how WWE has about a 90% revenue market share. It says, for example, 90% of WWE's revenues in the first 6 months of 2021 came from its long-standing media rights agreements with media distribution channels such as NBC Universal and Fox Sports, which is headquartered in California. And it describes the current state of how you can watch professional wrestling on broadcast media and on streaming services. Number 20, WWE broadcasts on Fox TV and USA Network, as we all know. That's where Raw and SmackDown can be found. On WWE Network, NBC Universal recently purchased WWE streaming rights for its subscription streaming service, Peacock. AEW broadcasts on Warner Media's TNT and will move to Warner Media's sister channel, TBS, in 2022. Talks about streaming, Sling, Hulu, YouTube, and through TNT's website. It also mentions Impact broadcast on AXS TV. B, WWE's market power. WWE's estimated annual total revenue in 2020 was over $764 million. By contrast, AEW's estimated revenue was $64 million, less than 10% of WWE's. The interesting thing there in paragraphs 21, 22, 23, talking about WWE versus AEW, the important thing to note there is WWE's revenues are reported as part of its SEC filings. WWE is a publicly traded corporation, has to give that information. So we know it. AEW is privately held, and those are only estimates. Footnote number 1, this is for Dave Meltzer and others so interested in that 18 to 49-year-old key demo. So the key demo and the demo god, Chris Jericho, they're talking about this key demo, paragraph 23, Raw, SmackDown, NXT averaged 4.7 million viewers per episode in 2020. And it gives the numbers for the key demo. AEW's Dynamite averaged 810,000 U.S. television viewers per episode in 2020. Not bad for a company that premiered on television in October 2019. And Impact averaged 154,000 U.S. television viewers per episode in 2020 for a 0.03 share. It goes on to state then, because of its market dominance, WWE has the ability to raise prices for consumers for a significant period of time and lower the quality of goods in this market available to consumers. We'll talk about that just a little bit more. WWE's monopoly position is protected by high barriers to entrance. These barriers include, among others, production costs for professional wrestling shows, exclusive contracts controlling wrestling talent, and the importance of brand recognition. That's arguably the case, but we'll get into that some more later. Paragraph 27 says, through its media rights contracts with major networks and distribution channels, WWE has locked networks, including streaming networks, and other partners into offering only WWE content. Paragraph 28, a very important one, I think, for discovery purposes. WWE has also leveraged its decades-long relationships with virtually every major arena in the U.S. to make it harder for WWE's competitors to book arenas which are critical for wrestling promotions and the production of weekly programming. For example, WWE has blocked AEW from hosting an event in 2 arenas in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's very important because, as you guys recall, in, I want to say 2018 or 2019, I was there, I just can't remember which year. I think 2019, WrestleMania weekend, New Japan and ROH ran Madison Square Garden. And it will be interesting whether there will be discovery on paragraph 28 relative to, did WWE attempt to block ROH and New Japan from getting to run Madison Square Garden. That information will be relevant to paragraph 28 of the complaint. Now it gets juicy. Now the complaint becomes what pro wrestling fans want to hear. Through WWE's predatory anti-competitive conduct, WWE has attempted to monopolize the professional wrestling market and has a dangerous probability of success at achieving monopoly power. Other than the Parker Brothers board game, we don't like monopolies in the United States of America. We busted up Standard Oil. We busted up Ma Bell. There ought to have been a lot more busting up going on over the last quarter of a century, but that's just Steve New on national politics, because large corporations are bad for the average American. MLW alleges its background success is dependent on the ability to hire and maintain relationships with its fighters and to market and distribute content. That's pretty straightforward. It says here, and this is the juicy. Paragraph 33, beginning in early 2020, WWE sought to poach MLW's fighters who were under exclusive contracts and even aired footage of an MLW wrestler without MLW's consent. It doesn't say who. WWE also attempted to induce MLW wrestlers to breach their contracts and reveal confidential and proprietary information about MLW's business. It goes on to say one of MLW's wrestlers demanded to be released early from his contract so he could join WWE. Now, guys, I've only had this in the midst of my grimy little pause since about 10 or 11 o'clock this morning. I've had a lot more going on, including a 100-page lawsuit where yours truly and our team are about to unleash hell on the American pharmaceutical industry, which will be filed tomorrow. Be that as it may, along with that, for the viewers and the listeners of the House of Kayfabe, I have reviewed this MLW lawsuit because I'm interested in it. But there are no details in paragraph 33. That will all be fleshed out, and those people, that MLW talent that's alleged to have been poached by WWE, will have to be named. And the said poaching will have to be fleshed out in depositions and document exchanges. That's the process when you guys hear me talk about discovery. Discovery is the phase of a lawsuit after initial motions where witnesses are deposed under oath and documents are exchanged. This is interesting. In the spring of 2021, MLW entered into a television deal with Vice, under which Vice would air MLW's archival footage. At the same time, MLW and Vice were negotiating an expanded relationship, which would include the airing of new MLW programs on Vice platforms. In June 2021, WWE learned about MLW's agreement with Vice. WWE executive, this is a vice president by the last name of Levinson, warned a Vice executive to stop airing MLW programs, saying that Vince McMahon was quote-unquote pissed that Vice was airing MLW content. At the time, WWE knew that it had leverage over Vice. WWE knew that Vice's special programs included a series, Dark Side of the Ring, that often focused on WWE storylines and included input from individuals associated with WWE. And later in 2021, Vice aired WWE attorney Jerry McDevitt in a starring role on an episode of the Vice series Dark Side of the Ring, which focuses on wrestling stories, including many involving WWE. You all remember, Jerry McDevitt had a prominent role in the steroid trial episode, which aired in the fall of 2021. It says A&E, which owns a 20% stake in Vice and runs and owns a majority of Vice's production operations, has a relationship with WWE, airing WWE programs, and A&E/WWE partnership programs. I'm assuming that's the treasure hunt type show. According to the lawsuit, Levinson told the person, or the vice executive responded to Levinson saying, "I think it's illegal what you're doing." Levinson responded, "She could not control Vince McMahon." At that point, as a result of WWE's threats, Vice stopped engaging in discussions with MLW about an expanded media rights deal. They only aired one single MLW program. And if you guys remember that from last summer, it kind of left all of us scratching our heads because there was all of this start and stop. And as a sponsor of MLW, I didn't like some of the answers that I was getting about why my commercials couldn't air on Vice or any of that kind of thing. And I have respect for Court Bauer and Mr. St. Laurent, but as a sponsor, I was a little bit put off about that. It makes a whole lot more sense now in reading this. This is a big time boom at paragraph 37, because paragraph 37 alleges that a fight executive advisor of corporate development, Greg Bernard, was at the same time that MLW was in negotiations with Fight, working as a senior vice president of strategy and operations, which, along with Fight's past use of WWE content and WWE's ongoing attempts to disrupt MLW opportunities, further illustrates WWE's dominance. So it'll be real interesting to see. So you're going to have some witnesses here from Fight TV. This, I think, is the big one. Paragraph 33. Because you get tortious interference when there's an actual contract, at least in the state of West Virginia. So paragraph 38, on July 22, 2021, MLW entered into a lucrative deal with Tubi. And it says, after the licensing agreement was executed, MLW began preparing 2 live events, including a fusion wrestling performance that was set for September 11, 2021. In preparation, MLW rented the NYTEX Sports Center. A second live event was scheduled to take place in Mexico for an Azteca wrestling performance. And so what MLW is saying there is they were getting ready to run in Dallas, and they were getting ready to run in Mexico, and they were excited about this Tubi streaming deal. And it says, in advance of the highly anticipated September 11, 2021 launch date, MLW and Tubi agreed to issue a joint press release on August 10. Now here's where it gets juicy. This is the best part of the lawsuit, in my opinion. On or about August 9th, 2021, WWE executive Stephanie McMahon spoke with a Tubi executive located in California about the license agreement. Ms. McMahon, Levesque to be precise, initially pressured the Tubi executive to deny MLW a time slot that would compete head-to-head with WWE's NXT programs on Tuesday nights. But Ms. McMahon ultimately pressured the Tubi executive and other senior executives at Fox to terminate all agreements in their entirety. On August 9, 2021, the night before a planned press release about the Tubi MLW deal, as a result of WWE's pressure and interference, MLW received a letter purporting to terminate the license agreement. If Tubi comes in and says, we terminated this agreement where we were going to start airing MLW program, it's game over on that count of this. And apparently that ran in the wrestling media, the dirt sheets, but who knows whether you can believe those or not. That's set forth in paragraph 47 of the lawsuit. Paragraph 48, it says, subparagraph E, WWE's anti-competitive and tortious conduct has caused irreparable harm to MLW and consumers. And it goes in, one thing you have to prove in a lawsuit is that you've suffered damage as a result of whatever bad conduct it is, be that medical malpractice or some defective product or a dog bite or car wreck. Whatever it is, you have to prove that there's been damage suffered. Now, MLW alleges ticket sales dropping by 40% within weeks of WWE's interference with the license agreement. This says MLW has lost a critical platform to air its new programs. It can take months, if not years. Now, one of the things that MLW will have to prove as a plaintiff is what have you done lately and through the pandemic to attempt to mitigate or keep your damages as low as possible. They describe their efforts on YouTube. I know that MLW has run through the summer and the fall of 21 shows at the old ECW Arena, 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. And but MLW is going to have to come forth with evidence not only on the damages suffered, as they allege, and their lawyers are very good lawyers. They know what they have to do to prove the damage, but also their efforts to try to minimize those damages. And from there, in the remaining paragraphs are just the claims for relief, what we call counts in the legal business: intentional interference with contractual relations. Second claim for relief, intentional interference with prospective benefits. That's talking about the Vice deal where MLW had one agreement already in place to air archival footage, but their negotiations were to start airing MLW programming. And they allege that WWE interfered with that. The third claim for relief is a Sherman Antitrust Act, saying that WWE has engaged in antitrust activities. That stuff is illegal. And just to let you know, it also carries with it treble damages and punitive damages, along with your attorney's fees. The fourth claim for relief is a claim under California's Business and Professional Code. Essentially everything that's been described, Business and Professional Code, the unfair competition law in California state code. So, and there's a demand for a jury trial. But this is the document that starts this process. WWE will have 30 days to respond to this with a response pleading. It can either be an answer, which goes through paragraph by paragraph, either admitting or denying certain paragraphs. WWE could make some procedural sort of motions about whether California is the right jurisdiction and venue, whether what happened should have been brought in California. I would expect, whether it's McDevitt or other WWE lawyers, to make those type of procedural motions and motions to dismiss. So after that is sorted out, and whether it's properly in California, then the case will proceed through discovery. I believe that there has been enough alleged here that there's going to be enough to stick where, whether it's in California or somewhere else, WWE is going to have to at least go through the discovery process, turn over documentation, but MLW is going to have to prove its damages. If you assumed that everything that MLW said in this was 100% accurate and true and will be and can be proven, when you get to the damages side of cases, your damages can't be based on speculation. Everybody who's ever been even a casual fan of the sport of professional wrestling know how hard it is to make it. There's a reason why. Granted, McMahon put all of his competitors out of business in the 80s, in the old territory days, and none of them brought lawsuits. They just kind of went along and licked their wounds and went on. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this and what discovery turns up. So I'm not making any predictions. Any lawyers who predict what happened in lawsuits are fools. I did that once, and a client of mine ended up spending about $20,000 to chase about $750 worth of T-shirts, if you recall that. But anyway, I'm not making any more predictions about the outcome of wrestling-related lawsuits. So tune in to House of Kayfabe as there are other developments in MLW v WWE. I will make sure to keep the residents of the House of Kayfabe up to date on what's going on. And it will be interesting to see what happens here, who the cast of characters are that end up deposed. And on some other notes, we've got some other wrestling-related litigation going on here at the law offices of New Taylor and Associates. It's a passion project of mine, much to my co-workers' chagrin sometimes, but I love it. It's a great release from the normal day-to-day of what it is that I do, and I so appreciate all of you guys. Thank you for all of the kind words that I get on social media and emails and everywhere. And to the foreign viewers and listeners, I am not licensed in the UK, in Denmark, in Germany, in Italy, in New Zealand, in Australia, all those exotic places that I would love to go to one day. Unfortunately, I'm not licensed there, so I'll just keep sending T-shirts and selling T-shirts to you guys. So anyway, much love from the consigliere of the cult of Jim Cornette, wrestling's greatest trial lawyer, Stephen P. New, signing off.